Today we're with topic 10. We're going to talk about co-creation, and the title of Zandra Balbinot's talk is Co-create to Better Break into the Market with New Ideas. Professor Zandra Balbinot from the University of Quebec, Montreal in Canada. But before, and this I hadn't said before we started recording here, before being in Canada, she was also a professor here in Brazil. She was actually a professor at Universidade Positivo and then at Universidade Federal do Paraná. Well, you will notice she may even have a French accent to her English, but she's Brazilian, right? So she speaks Portuguese very well as well. But that doesn't mean that you're allowed to ask questions in Portuguese today. But anyway, she has studied at Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul, and then gone to Canada, where she has spent most of her academic life, except for the years that she was teaching here at Universidade Positivo or at Universidade Federal do Paraná. Do we have any other things that we have to say before I can ask?
You can hand over to her.
Okay, so Zandra, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zandra Balbinot, as Professor Alexandre already presented me. I'm here to talk about something that I'm working on for several years now, which is called co-creation. And since you are more in the the communication technology, I thought it would be interesting to talk about the way you're going to use that to improve your products into the market. So what should you know about me? Well, Alexandre already told you, I'm from Université du Québec à Montréal. So I've been here for almost 10 years now, and teaching international and intercultural marketing. So why am I here? This is a super important question for everybody, including me, because I want to share with you something in the soft science that I believe it's super useful for people in what you call the hard science, right? So most of the time when you are developing new solutions, when you're doing applications, all of that stuff, you are working on your computer, on your table, and you're thinking how wonderful this product will be. So, well, maybe it's going to be for you, but maybe not for other people. So that's the point, or the main point, that I want to bring today to discuss with you. So from where should I start, right? So the main point is coming, so that's why I told you that I'm working on that. Has been several years that I'm working with that kind of co-creation situation. But the first point, it started in early 2000 when I started working on my PhD thesis, and I was working with Technological Alliance. So as you know, an alliance is something that we should, be in a partnership to share something. In my case, it was to share or to transfer technology between companies from Brazil and other companies in what we call developed world. So during my thesis, one of the things that we found out, or one of the findings, the results, it was that when you are doing an alliance, we have in fact two, I should say, timelines. One, which is going to be before you start, partnering, so what you call the ex-ante conditions. And those conditions should be defined by what kind of learning potential you have. So this is the case of a company, right? And the learning potential of that company will be defined by its technological capability and its absorptive capacity. Those two terms are not super necessary to be known right now, but just to let you think about it, the technology capability is what you have inside your company. For example, all the products that we have produced, all the solutions that we have developed, all of that, it's part of your technological capability. It's like your stock of ideas, stock of products, stock of solutions. The absorptive capacity, it's related more to the individuals. So how far are they in their learning that they can or they are able to understand an information? What kind of information? Any information. It can be an information related to your product, for example, to a product developed. It can be an information about a solution in terms of a process. Anyways, any information. So my findings they were related to those conditions. If you have or if you have not. If you have not, it's going to be really hard to go into a partnership. If you have, it's going to be easier to transferring the knowledge. And of course, what you call the ex-post conditions, which they are related when you are in the partnership. They're related to the strategy that we have, how able you are to communicate with your partner. And that communication is going to be not just language. If you speak Portuguese, if you speak English, it's going to be more related if you have the same technical language, the commitment that you have, and how well you're going to socialize. So all of that, okay, gave to me a scenario where I decided that, wow, partnership or alliance are not for everyone. So we need to have a kind of learning potential at the beginning if you wanted to go there. As you can see, we have here different levels of learning potential, going low to high. And we have what kind of technology you want to acquire. So if it's a technology that it's still a new one, if it's a transitional or what you call an in development technology, or if it's a specific, already a mature technology. So you do not need to have lots of knowledge to understand. Why? Because when you start in that point in the fluid technology, you are starting the point where the technology is not totally understandable. So there are much more tacit, something that you cannot put in the paper, than the tangible part, what you can see, what you can touch. So when you have that kind of imbalance between those parts, it's difficult because I'm not ready to transfer the technology for you, because even me don't know exactly what it's inside the technology. I just know that, it's a pen. So what I have inside. But if I twist the cap in the other sense, maybe it's going to be a different result. So all of that gives a different situation here where we will have different types of partnerships that can be proposed. So as you can see here in we'll start with the number 1. So here we are going to need just low to medium interaction. We're going to talk a lot about interaction, socialization, and all that stuff. And when you go to other parts, okay, it's going to improve the need to be with your partner. Okay, so those finds were really interesting for me at that time. Many publications, but I started, working on much more on innovation. And in the 2006-7, we started talking to talk about open innovation. And so, this kind of model here made sense because we start thinking, okay, we can go to that kind of open innovation, but if you do not have a certain level of learning potential, we are not able to see or to capture, to acquire that kind of innovation that you can touch. So the conclusion, of course, conclusion number 1 from the presentation of tomorrow is that which are the persons that can have or can accept new products. So it's a kind of parallel that I'm doing the company, the learning potential, and from to whom you're going to send that, or you're going to commercialize our application or our product. First of all, only for persons that understand our product. So it's not for everybody. If you have a person that does not understand your product or your application, of course, it's not going to be part of your market share. They're not buying what they do not know how to use it, or they do not see the value in this kind of product or application. Only the new product is only for persons that have an acceptable level of learning potential, the absorptive capacity and the technological capability. Only those persons will understand your product. So it starts, you can imagine already which are going to be your target, because now, I cannot target everybody. I should target a specific public that will understand what I'm talking about. And of course, those persons will be able to adopt, not only acquire, but adopt your product as something really important. So we have the answer for everything, I thought. But if you have the answer for everything, why still more than 80% of the inventions do not succeed to be commercialized? So if you are here at UTFPR developing a new application, you should know already that 80% of the persons developing applications there, they are not succeeding in the market. But today I will give you a few clues how you should interact with the market in order to break that kind of percentage here and be part of the 20%. So are you ready for one small test? Okay, I believe you're ready. So I asked Professor Alexandre if I could do a test with you to assess your learning potential, and he told me yes. Okay, so let me see. My problem is that I'm not seeing you guys, so I will try to figure out how can I see your faces.
We're here.
What? I'm just hearing your voices, so I'm totally lost here. So first test. I need you to tell me what is that picture. I will give you a few seconds. So you can write on the chat, and if you write on the chat, I believe Flavio, you can just summarize a few opinions.
So some people are saying snake.
Okay.
Snake from Pequeno Príncipe.
Okay.
Worm, slug, rat.
Okay.
Pequeno Príncipe again. Le Petit Príncipe. Snake that eat.
Okay.
Snake, worm, snake. So if I have to summarize, it's going to be snake and worm.
Okay. Is there someone here seeing a hat?
Yes.
Okay, at least, because I would be really disappointed if nobody's seeing a hat here, right?
Yes. Hat.
So this is, I believe lots of Brazilian people read the Petit Prince, Pequeno Príncipe, from Saint-Exupéry. And so it was a draw that this boy did, showing a snake that ate an elephant. And
someone had definitely read and remembered, because I read but didn't remember it. But someone said exactly.
That's the point, you know.
I read it when I was, I don't know, 10 years old. Come on. It's been 40 years, 40 something years.
It's not a problem, because I'm trying to, figure out which learning potential you have, right? So we're going to try another one.
Very little.
Don't worry, Alexandre. It's your age. So you must start, remembering everything from your childhood. And forgetting the short memory.
I'm forgetting what I had for lunch, right?
So next, let's try that one. What do you think this is? Where is this picture?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Part of a paragraph, a dot,
Okay.
over a line, a point in a graph, Mexican riding a bike, balance, Mexican riding a bike,
Okay.
nail, a balloon with a line.
Okay. I will just show something else here.
An airplane.
So it changed. Someone changed.
An airplane,
or new ideas.
an ET, noodle, fly, a horizontal view of a plane, clock pointer.
Okay, wow, but this is super, because it's much more large, right, than the situation of the Pequeno Príncipe.
Yes.
So what what I want to show with this picture. So I have someone sharing my mindset already. It's in fact a Mexican riding a bike. Okay, so we'll try the last one. What is that thing?
Neural network. Neural network. Neural network. Deep neural network. Neural net. A computer network. The internet. The brush. Neural net. Net. Graph. Lot of Mexican riding a bike. Bike. A web. Network.
I love that one. Love that one. I wanted the name of that person.
Marina Valim.
Marina,
Yeah, I
love
think
you
you can
already.
ask what is the reason, what is the, you know, what is the logical view to come up with this opinion?
Okay, so this is so except for Marina, everybody was right for this picture. But what can you see from this learning potential, right? Your learning potential or your absorptive capacity is related to your database, to what you have inside your head, right? What you had inside your mind. Normally, what you have inside your mind is something that makes part of your reality. So for sure, the neuro, it's something that he used a lot in your day-to-day. So when you see that picture, it's easily identifiable. On the other side, when you go outside your box and you try to figure out what is that kind of picture, it's harder to establish what it is. What you just done here during this 5 minutes showing you a pictures is that we start building a new reality in your minds. So from now on, each day that you're gonna see picture 1, 2, or 3, you're gonna remember that thing, and you're gonna believe that what you're seeing, it's a snake that just ate an elephant, a Mexican riding a bike, and that neural that you already know. So all the stuff related to the information technology. So this is the basic point of co-creation. It's the construction of your new reality. And why this is needed when you're trying to put your product into the market? It's because one of the major problems that we have when you try to show someone what you're doing is what you call the decoding, okay? Because in this side of the message or the message that you want to send to someone, so showing your app, showing your product, you know what you want to transfer. You know what kind of message you want to send. The problem is not that you do not know, is that your reality is one, your database is one, and when you need to share that database with someone else, you're going to use your own words or your own world to communicate that. So when you arrive in the other side, it's going to arrive something that you don't know. In fact, that person, and this is one of the problems about co-creation, the decodation here. Why? Because that person will certainly interpret your message. So for sure, that person will understand what you're saying, but in his or her way, which means not what you want to tell her or him. So this is the basic point, called also lost in translation, but this is our case, it's lost in technological translation. So what can you do about that? And that's why I'm here to show you a little bit how you're going to use that. First of all, so I love that. So methodology taught so much to my whole life. And this is Plato. I believe everybody knows the cavern of Plato. And as you can see here, we have people inside the cave here, and you have people outside. Those people inside the cave, they have one point of view about the world. The world has no light, Okay, so the light that they used to have is that kind of light. It's fire. It's closed, much more in a different temperature of world we can imagine. And suddenly, those persons here, they will go out, but not everybody, just the more adventurous. They go out and they see the whole planet, what's going on, etc. So when they do that, okay, they will figure out that they will have a new reality. They will try to figure out what's going on. But in order to figure out what's going on, they will need to go back into the cave and ask to the others, man, I don't know, look at what I saw. Do you think this is possible, life out of the cave? And of course, since the cave will legitimize the sense that we'll have that person that went outside, they will tell that person, are you mad, man? So no reality out of the legitimization. Or if you have a reality that you believe they are crazy and you're not, well, you're going to be marginalized from your society because they will think that you are crazy. So this is what you call this kind of process when you need to give a sense to the message and legitimize the sense of the message. We call this process the socialization process. And the socialization, how it works, okay, so we need to use that when you need to give a sense to something. It's what you call the theory from Weig called sense making. And the sense making, it's really simple. I will not, give you a speech here in terms of sense making. It's just a support theory to give an explanation to you why co-creation is so important. So this process, this social process, the way it works is that first you need to enact your environment. So each change in your environment will create what you call a discontinuity. And so you're going to ask yourself, okay, it's weird. Now we have light out of the cave without starting a fire. How this is possible? So each time that you have that kind of discontinuity, you ask yourself what's going on. When you ask yourself what's going on, you're going to select, okay? You're going to select one answer. That answer is based on what you have in your mind, so your database. In your database, you're going to check, like a process in the information technology world, you're going to check yes or no. Yes, I recognize. No, I don't. So what should I do? So all of that, okay, will give you an idea what to do. And so once you give a meaning to what you saw, so you're going to say, okay, yes, I know where is that. So it makes sense. And I can keep going. No, it doesn't make sense at all. So I will reject the idea or I will totally refuse to believe, or I will be against. So this is one of the positions when you are in a company and someone proposes something new, strongly new, and the persons will just say, oh man, forget about it. Or I'm super against that. So why? Because you do not see the meaning. Your database is not processing the meaning. So because you said, no, I don't understand, it doesn't make sense for me. That's why we should do something to make sense or to give sense, to give a meaning to that person, that idea to that person. So this is what you're going to do when you're going to use a social process, when you're going to put different people together. Different people together, we're going to be able, first of all, individually, to change our reality. It's the theory of what you call constructivism. And in the constructivism theory, we are able to build a new reality. Why? Because you're going to, destroy what you thought we know, and you're going to build a new reality. But how can you do that? The way you're going to do that, it's socializing with other people. So it's what you call intersubjectivity. When you are together, when you're sharing meanings with other people, you're going to ask yourself again, and that person during the interaction will be able to explain, and you're going to be able to process the information and try to find a new meaning into your head. Of course, when we are legitimizing something, it doesn't mean that I will be able to describe exactly the way the person told me, because I'm using my own mindset, my own idea of the process. So that's the way people evolve and people create new knowledge. It's what you call the social process of knowledge creation. So as this is my mouse. Oh, I'm not using it anymore. We'll just, okay. So look at that here. So this is the wheel of knowledge creation. So the first point here is socializing. When you are together with other persons, okay, we are sharing and creating tacit knowledge, which means knowledge that we are not able to write down on a paper. It's something that will be between my database and the other one. When you socialize that, okay, you're gonna externalize, articulating through dialogue, through intersubjectivity for sure, reflection. So all of that, it will externalize that tacit knowledge here. Doing that, it will, of course, become explicit. It will combine. I'm trying to figure out, okay, use that thing here, flash, still. So it will combine here, okay? But the combination, it's something that you're combining a new information that you just received with the information that you already have in your mind. Of course, you're gonna have new knowledge here. You're gonna internalize something new. It's the way you're gonna learn and acquire new tacit knowledge in practice. But for sure, you're not having, when you are deconstructing and rebuilding your reality, you're not having what that person told you here. You're combining, so you're having a new knowledge, something that it's for you, okay? But from now on, you and the other person, you can get along because you're gonna be able to understand each other, but not necessarily doing the same thing, okay? So this is the magic, I should say, about being together, socializing. And this is how you're gonna answer our problem, how to co-create, how to put our application and having success in the market. So we're gonna use, okay, the co-creation situation. So first of all, we need to make users understand our product. If they share or if they do not share the same meaning. So this is the first question that we need to answer. Once you did that, you're gonna need to understand the user's needs and if they are tacit in nature. So all of that, we are being together. And socializing, of course, you're gonna improve our sense making or the meaning that we can share together. So this was the introduction to the co-creation and why I believe this is something really amazing to be used when you're trying to develop a new solution, a new application, a new product. A few definitions of co-creation. First of all, it's a joint creation of value because it's not just a creation of an explicitly a tangible thing. It's something that will be in your head, and so it will have not just a meaning, but also a value for you. So it's a creation of value by the company or between the company and the customer. And it's also, we can also talk about the enactment, like we saw in the sense-making theory. An enactment of interactional creation across interactive system environments. So when you use social media, when you use all the electronic connected media, you can also share meanings doing that. And in that kind of process, we can also co-create. So we do not need to socialize in being present in that kind of physically. We can also socialize in a virtual environment, which today with COVID-19, it's super important to use that. Lots of companies are already using that, most of the time in the cosmetics industry. Advantage that we have when you are co-creating. So we have advantage, of course, for all the participants. One of them is the user. So the user, first of all, he will socialize with the developer, which is the beginning of the talking and the meaning sharing between those two parts. So he will discuss and externalize what if and needs, even though most of the time the user does not know his or her needs. So when you're talking with someone else, we can, place or put into the head of that person the need, but also the what if, so the insecurities. I'm not ready. Oh my God, it's super complicated for me. No, don't give me that technology because I will never use it. When you're able to do several rounds with that person that will never be able to use the technology, we will be able to make that person give a meaning to that product. But the meaning is coming from the combination with the database that that person already has. So that person will be inclined to accept the product because finally it makes sense. So it will integrate new information to the database, and finally it will legitimize the new information, and after several rounds legitimize also the new solution. What are the advantages for the developer? For the developer, of course, in an open innovation system, because now we are interacting, so I'm receiving information from different places or from different people, different from my own domain, which is very important to the knowledge creation. So when I showed you what is your learning potential, all the pictures that were not part of what you're doing, it was difficult to realize or to state that this is what I think, or 100% sure this is a neural network, right? Because it's not part of what you do. So when you receive new ideas from the user, you are receiving also new ways to solve a problem, which is very important. And in these ways, you're going to be able to reassure the user about that new technology. When we receive new ideas, new information, we can also test our ideas, and we can test all the what ifs during the development of the product. We can also test the do's and don'ts in real time because we are sharing that information and we are already testing the product. So we do not need to have a prototype, do a market research to test the product. No, we are testing it in real time. And when you receive that information, we're going to integrate that new information to our database and to the change that you're going to need to do in our solution. And this will legitimize the new information. So this is I should say, the spiral of the knowledge creation, and also the spiral of the cycle of the co-creation. Why co-creation is so important to break the market. I want to show you an example, but before the example, I don't know if I have any questions about the theory. And if I have, the mic is open to the questions.
While they are thinking of questions, I have one that I was thinking here. For example, in the early 80s, AT&T had this huge survey with North Americans about what they wished to have as new features in a telephone. And most people told them, yes, I would like to have keys that I could see in the dark, that I could use the telephone in the evening from bed, for example. Others said, I don't like that curly. Remember the file that I hate that. Could you think of something different to that? Others said, I want a larger number so that I can see because I'm sort of blind. No one told AT&T that they would wish to pick the phone, put in their pockets, and walk around. No one, none of the customers could tell them, I want a mobile phone, because customers thought that was impossible. I mean, we can only think and we can only co-create if, using ideas that we think that are possible. So in that sense, considering that the technology is in the hands of the developers many times, do we need a balance between, the ideas that should come from the users and the ideas that should come from research and development?
What should I say? First, that this is a super case about why you should not use the interpretation of market research to start a new product, right? Because it's your interpretation and it's also your questions. So if it's the same thing, son, why you didn't do that? Because you didn't ask me, right? So this is one of the major points about co-creation, and you're gonna enter also in the open innovation. You need to do, first of all, to socialize and be open to receive no matter what kind of ideas. This is one of the main points, and you cannot think this is absurd. You need to use, again, what if, do's and don'ts, and if you receive something absolutely absurd, you need to ask other persons, but not from your entourage. You need to ask persons, out of your own cave, so out of your box. And I should say this is one of the main interesting points about co-creation. And this is one of the most difficult points to put in place. Because when you are sure about the solution, when you receive a new information, you're always using your own lenses to interpret what that person is telling you. So even though I'm telling you I would like to have a mobile phone, you're going to think about what the phone you already have now and not thinking about what a mobile is. So how can I, interpret that kind of message that the other is trying to telling me? You need lots of rounds of socialization. And when we are talking about socialization, it's not discussing just your product. We are doing one test today, and I'm sending a project like I told you before. And one of the main points is doing something outside the product development. So since we are developing a product with elderly people, so I put in the descriptive, the socialization is like making cake together, sharing recipes. So all of that, it's not related at all to the product. But of course, you're gonna see, or you're gonna try to enter the cave of the other one in order to change our lenses to see the world in a new way. It's not that I will see my world always in the same way. I will start seeing the world the way the other is seeing it. So is research and development important? Research and development, it's always important. But the problem about research and development, it's people they are still in their caves. And so you're gonna put lots of money in one cave that will not be understood by the others. That's my point. Alexandre, back to you.
And also, as you were, talking there, I was thinking about these days. We talk a lot about echo chambers, right? Because it happened a lot in politics. It happens a lot in customs. We relate to other people that think the same way we do, and when we relate to someone who's different, we do it through, our electronic social networks. And if they think too differently, we just say, "Let me kill this person," and you just delete them from your social relations, and then you don't have access to that kind of idea any longer. And then we all become stupid our own way, right? We all become very narrow-minded because we think that everyone who's normal and everyone who's intelligent or everyone who's reasonable thinks exactly the way we do. So we only see, again, it's almost like if we were building walls between the different caves to make them even more exclusive, even more, yeah.
The genetics, it's really wise. They already told us that if you combine the same genes all the time, you're gonna have at the end a broken human being, right? So why you're not doing that?
What happened to most of the European dynasties, right?
Yes.
The kings and queens that were always marrying among each other, and they all had different kinds of diseases that were really a result of not mixing. Yeah.
So that's the same case in the domain of ideas.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Guys, I thought that my questions here would start.
Okay, so we'll give the example. Let's go with the example. If I do not have questions. Okay, so the example, it's a project that in fact, 2 years ago, we started that project and it evolved a lot. But at that time, The project was called, I don't know if I can call that, but the connected objects. So we are in the era of IoT, Internet of the Things. And so it was the connect objects as an enabling technology for frugal healthcare innovations. And what we want to do at that time, it was a remote monitoring of elderly people. So we are in Canada. In Canada, we have a problem with people aging. And when you age, well, don't know if it's a problem, but, you know, sometimes you do things that you shouldn't do, or, you know, we need someone to figure out what's going on. We need surveillance, we need caregivers. So all of that, it's something really expensive for the government. And so they need to have tools, okay, to figure out what's going on with those persons and keep them at home in a more independently way. So we figure out that using connected objects. And so as you can see here, we have the person that will use like the Apple Watch. This was 2 years ago when Apple Watch haven't still being, you know, called a savior because they save people from heart attacks and all that stuff due to the alarms and all that stuff. With a connect object, we can having sensors, we can monitoring what's going on in terms of blood pressure, temperature, position. Anyways, you can monitor everything about a person with the connect object. So this object with the artificial intelligence, we can already give parameters to the object, and when the people or the sign that we receive, the lecture of the sign that we're going to receive, we're going to be outside of those parameters. So it will create an alarm from your cell phone that will work as an anthem that will, you know, call someone. So it can be a nurse, it can be a physician, it can be your son. So someone will receive an alert, and this alert will ask you, okay, do something right now, or there's something different going on with this person. So this was the product or the idea. But the problem with that idea is that elderly people, they do not like at all to be to have surveillance in their lives. So this is one point. The other, since they were not, you know, born in this whole new technology world, they feel like they do not understand new technology. So they, like I showed you in the sense making, they reject the idea. And most of them, I know that we have a kind of modern people that decide that I will use it, but most of them reject the idea because they feel they are not able to understand. So this is basically the point here. So what we propose, of course, development of this product in a co-creation. The co-creation between the users and the developers. Why? First of all, to reduce the risk associated with the launch of a new product that it will not be accepted by the market, and also to accelerate the adoption of the product. What is the legitimation of the idea of using this product? Another proposition that we had with this project was the frugality, which is related to the type of material that you're going to use. Because if you do something like an Apple Watch, it's super expensive. So it's not for everybody. And even though they still do not have the technology that I'm talking about, the way we're going to generate this kind of alerts. So the idea was to use something that already existed to give a second life to that product. So Texas Instruments, they developed lots of sensors. And we decided that we're going to use those sensors that already existed to build our product. So the problem, it was related, of course, to, you know, acceptance, the sense making with the elderly people, and I should say also the caregivers, people from their entourage also, that they did not feel secure having something connected, because sometimes, you know, the sign will go down or whatever the reason. So the first phase, with this methodology, it was to do a focus group via Facebook. This is another point. I forgot to tell you that. Since we are talking, we are dealing with elderly people, our ethic, the research committee that judges if the project, it's secure to be done, they decide that it was not secure enough for elderly people. So before, for the prototype, you should use people having really good health conditions. So we decided to go with the youngest. So people, students that used to play in different teams. So those were the people participating from the Fox group. And so we decided to do it from using Facebook, because we do not need to, be in the same room to do the discussion, all of that. It was a kind of, I'm just feeling like a future teller, because nowadays we need to use Facebook, or you need to use virtual focus group due to the pandemic. So, it was a presage already what would be next to you. So we use that during 10 days. We do, 10 days, okay, of interaction in the Facebook. So we became a big family, talking about everything and the product. And so at the end of the 10 days, we figured out that during the discussions, most of the time what we saw, it was people talking about bracelet to use, or use in the arm, or in the wrist, or using in the ankle. Also, we have different ideas. So we have ideas out of the box. I don't know if you can see in the cloud here, but we have, for example, earrings, we have tattoos. So all of that, those were ideas that came from the discussion that we had in the group. So we needed a prototype, right? So we did a prototype, and you put in the phase 2 people to use the prototype and share the information about the prototype. So this sharing, it was really amazing, because the prototype was super ugly. But people, they were so committed to the project that they, I don't know, I believe I have the prototype here. 1 minute. So this was the prototype. As you can see, it's super not, fashion. And so they were so committed to the project that they used the prototype, this big thing here, for 5 days in different parts of the body, in the wrist, in the ankle. And so they gave feedback for us. So we have a few feedbacks here, always thinking in terms of the elderly people. So if we want to integrate it for the elderly, I would add more features to look like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. Of course, this is one of the things that we want to do. Concerning the product itself, it would be more interesting if it were smaller in terms of size. The motion sensor is very relevant. It could be used to transmit a notification if the person has not moved for more than 3 hours in the day, for example. Or if the person did not move for 3 hours, most likely she's dead. But anyways, it was amazing. And what I felt from that, it was the generation of different set of ideas, different ways to do the same thing. Ideas that already existed, critiques about the Apple Watch or the Fitbit. Nobody talked about price. This is super interesting, because the students most of the time talk about price, but they didn't. But we know that the solution, if you want to be in big scale, sales, we're gonna need to figure out a low cost solution. So now, from this prototype, we started working in another product in co-creation. So when I'm talking about we are a team, and in this team we have me from the business school. We have someone from physical development, which is much more like it's called kinesiologist. So someone that studies the movement. We have 2 people from the information technology. So one that it's hardware developer, and the other that it's much more in artificial intelligence. So, and of course, we are people that do not talk the same technological language at all. And we are already co-creating in our research group. And when you put other people inside in this discussion, we are having amazing ideas, and we are seeing that people, they're much more willing to accept the product and to be ready to adopt the product. So this is it for me for today. Professor Alexandre has the slides, so he can share with you. And in the slides, we have more reference if you want to read a little bit more about the subject or to know what's going on. Wait.
Yeah, so we have two questions actually. We can start with the blue one here on the left-hand side. So in a co-creating process, from a startup perspective, how to interact and get feedback from the stakeholders.
And may I add something to that, Zandra? Because I think that in the case of startups, it's always like that, right? At least those startups that start the Silicon Valley way, they say, go talk to your potential customers. We don't want you to think of a product if you don't have a customer for it.
Exactly. I believe this is one of the major important points about being a cluster. Like the case of Silicon Valley, it's because you can share your ideas with everybody in every situation that you have in your life. So you go to a restaurant, you go to a bar, you can talk and they start talking about other ideas and start making, like you said, a small conversation. And so that way you can receive new feedback, not on your ideas, but sometimes you can acquire different ideas, or even though exploring, why this is like that, testing your what ifs and do's and don'ts. So this is something very important. In the case of startups, it's the same thing. You need to be close to different persons. So this is one of my major critiques to most of the developers, is that they stay close in their homes and they think they will create something amazing, but it's amazing just for you, maybe for your colleagues that share the same mindset, but it's not be amazing for people that do not understand what you just have created. So socialization, if you have meetings, if you have something like that kind of seminar that Professor Alexandre is organizing, if you have all the networking possibilities that we have, I strongly advise to go. But when you talk about networks, not network just on your domain, it's network to do different things in your life. Even going to exercise, going to your gym, it can be something if you're not just in your machine, but you are talking with other persons. Next question. Because that companies invite some customers to visit the company and expose your opinion about some product. Okay. You don't understand the question? Does that companies invite some customers to visit the company? This is...
So maybe I think that they...
Okay, I got it.
Opinion, I believe, about the product.
Okay, one important thing about co-creation is that you need to go out of your cave. If you are asking consumers, clients, customers to visit your company, you're still in your cave and you're trying to sell your idea from your cave. If you're selling your idea from your point of view, you're selling nothing. Okay, you need to be, I always say,
in a neutral environment.
Yeah, I don't know. You need to create an environment when you need to be free and open to new things. So this is one of the most important points. When you're in your company, you're already thinking, oh my God, someone will call me. I just saw Adriana there and she will ask me to do something. You're not in the mood to share, to socialize, interact, combine with what you have in your mind. You are in the mood output. Okay, output. So try to sell your idea. When you are in this mood, you're not co-creating.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that that's the only two questions that we have. If anyone from the audience wants to make a question, feel free to open the mic and do it. Or Alexandre, you want to do it?
One of the problems with Mentimeter is that when we're showing it there, it doesn't allow, right? You have to lock it. So it doesn't allow people to keep asking. So if anyone has any other questions, want to share experiences that you have with respect to co-creation, this is probably a good time for us to discuss it.
Maybe I can.
There's another question. What if we are doing business-to-business relationship? Yeah. So the co-creations between a project leader in our side as IT and a manager. Yes, yes. This is amazing because I just worked with a big multinational company here last year called SNC Lavalin. And they had a big problem. What they called, how they call that? Change management. Okay, so they decide to they decide to go with a new system in all their IT subsidiaries. Okay, so something amazing. And so they were having serious problems in one of them, in fact, in all of them, but they just told me one of them. And after the end, I realized that was in all of them. And in Romania, that people, instead of, first of all, they were telling the headquarters here, yes, we are doing the transition to the new application. Okay, to the new system. And when they arrived there, the new system was not there yet. So what's going on? And when you they used to ask someone what's going on, that person simply decide to, I'm not working here anymore. So the turnover was super high. The system, all the deadlines were down because the system was not being used. So all of that. And so I asked them, do you know the way Romanians work? And so they asked, of course, they're lazy people. They're the list. Do you really know the way they work? So we start co-creating in that way, but sharing or giving sense one side to the other and changing the way we are seeing Romanians. And so we start discussing, and the person responsible for that here in Canada, I asked her, okay, just talk about family, talk about fashion, talk about no matter what, but don't talk about the system. And so, okay. So we start doing that kind of networking and sharing. And it was amazing because, well, it took long. It took more than 1 month of networking and sharing nothing, in fact. And so finally, she built trust in that group. Start putting in the fashion because the girl was super girly fashionist. And so that girl started putting examples in the fashion examples that she gave related to the system, doing parallels. And so people start accepting the system. And so they solved that problem. So yes, in the business relationship, the sense making, the co-creation, it's also on, and it's also very helpful.
Any other question?
Okay, I still have something to ask Zandra here, because again, we've been rehearsing to start doing some research together for many years, right?
That's true.
Well, Zandra was
you
working
always prepare others than me.
No, it's just a matter that when Zandra was working with Frugal technology, I thought, well, that's precisely what not only what we need in countries like ours, but Frugal in the sense that that it's less expensive, less fancy, but goes straight to the point. I said, that's not only something that we need because we cannot pay for fancy technologies, but it's also something that we can develop because we are also as creative as they are in the richest countries, just that we use our creativity to create solutions for our problems that we can pay for, right? But at some stage, I remember that we were almost starting to work together. It was at a time that well, not only Brazil, the BRICS were shining, 2010 or so. We thought that we knew it all. We were at the top of the mountain. We thought that finally, those countries would, show all their creativity, but also show transform their potential into something real, right? And then soon afterwards, we noticed that the crisis that most of the let's say, the more developed world had already gone through, it was also hitting us, and then we lost that opportunity as well. But co-creation is definitely the way to go. We have many students here that are information system students or even computer science students, and it's something that we don't talk about in those schools, is that the user can and should become a co-developer of any software solution. Mainly because we tend to talk about solutions when we don't know what the problem is, right? Or at least when we don't know what the problem of that specific customer is. So if we can engage, if we can engage customers in a way that they become co-developers of their own solutions, we are ensuring that it's going to be a better solution for themselves. But at the same time, we are giving ourselves the opportunity of understanding that customer better, and by understanding that customer better, also understanding all other customers, or at least other customers that live in similar caves, to keep to the analogy of Plato here, right? Because of course there will be customers that will be still different, and we'll still need to talk to them and transform them in co-developers of their own solutions, so that we also get into their caves. We have to get into people's homes as developers, so that we help them develop their, what we in the research that I do, what we usually call the design, the customer's design of its own, of his or her own solution. Right? And in that sense, I think that it's not a possibility for Alexandre and Zandra to work together, but it's actually a possibility for any of us to think in our own research in ways in which we can gather that information. Zandra talked a little bit and very quickly about open innovation. About 2 or 3 times here she mentioned open innovation, which is, of course, possibly at the heart of co-creation, right? But
it's the heart of co-creation.
It's the only way we can go in the future, right? If we don't think open in a way that we understand better the others, and we understand better the others' perspectives, or at least we include them in our analysis of problems and systems, we will only generate systems that work for ourselves. Okay, so think of that, and when you have an opportunity of seeing Zandra's speech over, when of course we have it recorded, and it's going to be there in our Lacais channel afterwards. When you see it again, think in ways you can include this gene of cooperation, of this gene of co-development, co-conception, co-development, co-production, co-everything in the systems and in the ideas that you have in the future, because I think you will be much more successful in whatever you do.
Can I make one?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, go for it.
No, I was over with that.
Yeah, so it's actually a quick question. I'm not sure if the answer is short, but yeah, so I was wondering if there is a bridge between the co-creation and the artificial intelligence. So we have been talking about humans co-creating knowledge or experience, and also the sensing making from from a person, from a human being. And I always think that there is something in between humans and machine that we can co-create somehow. There is this new line of research emerging, the human and AI. I think the name is enhancement, for developing tasks or performing some kind of tests. And do you have any thoughts on that? So if there is any place in which AI can perform better than others, or if there is any way that we can, extrapolate a little bit the co-creation theory to understand the role of AI in co-creating knowledge. That's a very big field, actually. I'm not sure the answer is going to be short, but yeah.
Well, actually too, because I always compare when I talk about co-creation and about coding and decoding with artificial intelligence. Because when you are doing an algorithm to learn from something, the algorithm will learn where you tell it to learn, right? So that's the way it will learn. So this is your code. So how can we extrapolate that code, or the way the algorithm should see something, further?
But there is a possibility there, because of course you can teach, when you're teaching the algorithm to think the way you do, you're using the traditional way, you're coding it correctly. But when we allow the algorithm to figure out patterns in things that we haven't seen, then we may have some interesting new perspectives. It's the old idea of the data mining. Remember data mining when they
Data mining,
think of
yeah,
the nappies and beer.
Now it's big data, but it's
Yeah.
data mining that in our age.
Yeah, okay. Now the new names for the same thing.
New names, yes. But yeah, it's the same thing, and that's the idea. That's the idea. And the problem when you programming something is that you always tell the program to do what you want, that you think that's correct. If you could, do something that the program will be more autonomous to find an answer, now you can have more co-creation in that.
Maybe it's programming to get good questions instead of good answers, because you can only get the answers for the questions that you make, right? But if you don't ask the questions, if you allow your system to ask the questions, maybe you get insights.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Zandra, thank you very much. So maybe just a last chance for those of you who have your cameras off to turn on the camera for that last print screen here, so that you put in your Instagram, and we can show people that we are doing some interesting stuff here on Wednesday afternoons. See, now they're showing. Everyone is showing. Maybe we can get a few more. Maybe we'll beat the record, and we can tell that Zandra and her co-creation made us courageous to show our faces here. All right, everyone takes their own print screens so that we can all post different shots in our Instagrams, Facebooks, or whatever. Okay. Thank you very much for being here. And we'll see you next week with the continuation of our series. 3 more. Okay. See you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Zandra.
See you, Sandra. Thank you very much.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.